Good morning, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to another episode of Let's Build Profoundly. Introducing our early pros, Zach Hussion, joining us today. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you? Good to see you again. Always a pleasure to have a good conversation with my buddy Chris here. So thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's our pleasure. With us from the start, you've gotten a job or two already, so already bringing the value. And so today we get to talk about you, and we get right into it. What is your HubSpot expertise, and how did you get it?
Geez. So let's see here. Going back to I think it was probably around like 2014, maybe that time frame. I was working for a manufacturing company, and they were kind of like just looking to start exploring like their first CRM. And so I was tasked with researching, I spent months looking at every CRM that was out there, right? So I looked at Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics, and I looked at HubSpot, and I looked at some, kind of other more specialized, lesser known CRMs. I looked at, there was a kind of a CRM bolt-on for the ERP system, so I went, full spectrum on, what could we possibly look for in a CRM. And that was kind of my first real like aha moment that I'm like, man, I really like the CRM stuff and the operational side of things more than some of the traditional just sales and marketing stuff I've been doing for all these years. And so I had a little bit of experience. Like I had set up some Salesforce accounts and things like that. And so when I found HubSpot, it was like, wow, this just solves so many of these challenges that I've been trying to solve as a marketer. Because it was really more marketing back then, marketing focused. This like I have to have it, and that was my recommendation for the company, that they go with HubSpot, and they didn't go with it. They went with another CRM, which was unfortunate, but understood, that was kind of the direction that they went in. I wasn't there for much longer, and then kind of decided that HubSpot had to be a part of something, that I was doing. At every company I went to, kind of moving forward, there was usually HubSpot being used in either a marketing capacity, or then it started kind of getting into some more of the sales stuff. And I would kind of jump from a sales job here or a marketing job there, and I would always struggle to stay focused on the task at hand, which is selling or marketing. And I kept on drifting back to like, this whole revenue operations thing is broken. It's like I can't do my job without a good foundation, and I always kept on going back to that. And so finally, it was just like, I guess this is what the universe is telling me to do. So that was kind of like where I first fell in love with HubSpot back in 2014, and kind of haven't looked back since.
So now it sounds like you're uh, like marketing and sales, rev ops, like making that stuff work.
Yeah,
Basically, is your
so
jam.
yeah, it's like I did it for 20 years, mainly for manufacturing, B2B manufacturing companies, all different types of sales and marketing roles, all different types of companies. I mean, I had a lot of different roles and industries that I worked with over the years, and kept on going back to this thing that I loved. And, finally, had an opportunity a couple of years ago to go off on my own and start Hush Inbound. And I'm like, damn it, I'm going to do the things that I really love to do. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And so really just focusing on, these like systemic problems that a lot of manufacturers, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of companies have, but it seems to be a little bit more, pronounced in the manufacturing world. And I saw an opportunity to really help a lot of these organizations modernize their tech stack, actually focus on revenue operations. Everything's just so siloed out there still. And so, we help people with those kind of digital journeys, onboarding for HubSpot, doing all the customizations, the training, data integrations, you name it, soup to nuts. And then, there's kind of the other half of it, which is the technology enables you to execute the strategy. So if you have a crappy strategy, you're not going to, the tool's only going to get you so far. So to me, the strategy portion is super important, right? Like understanding the business, the needs, the challenges. If we're going to go in there and like help a company with lead generation, it's not just setting up a lead qualification pipeline in HubSpot and saying, have at it. It's, well, okay, how are we going to get these leads? What's your content strategy? Like, what's your, advertising? Like, what are you doing today? What's working? What's not? How do you know what's working and what's not? And kind of then fulfilling that whole inbound marketing journey as well. So from website development to social media management, Google ad management, content development, search engine optimization. So it's kind of like soup to nuts, right? Here's your whole revenue operations strategy that you can come to us for. And then I work with a lot of partners to kind of fulfill those needs. So it's an awesome ecosystem here with all the partners, that I work with at HubSpot, and like all of the partners in the ecosystem. And it's just been working out great. I can't say enough good things about the people I'm working with and the results that we're able to get for folks. So it's been a fun journey. So that's kind of, what we've been focused on. And yeah.
Yeah, it's I have to say, obviously, the story resonates a little bit. My manufacturing background as well as, and when we find each other in the ecosystem, us manufacturers, it's pretty hard to pull us apart. And I could sense, or it definitely resonated, like you describing this first experience of do all the work to assess what would be right for the business, choose HubSpot, and then it doesn't get chosen. Mm. And I remember feeling when I jumped into the ecosystem, uh, uh, deciding to be done with working inside. When I was on the inside, I never understood uh, where the disconnect was. Right, like we're the marketers. It makes digital transformation, customer experience makes so much sense. Why is nothing getting through?
Yeah.
And then I got here, and I'm curious, and maybe you could help some of our viewers why it's so important, why we choose to actually highlight like manufacturing background, right?
hmm
SaaS in the
hmm
SaaS space, right?
hmm
Like what would you go to as far as like helping people understand why there's such a difference?
Like why there's such a difference in like different partners who have different like kind of real world experiences that they bring to the table that's different for like a manufacturing company versus a SaaS company, and how like, or
Yeah,
is that
like
kind of what
what's
you're getting at?
needed to know, like if you're gonna go serve a manufacturer that's struggling with these systems, like why it's so much different than maybe some of the other industries that people are used to.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Manufacturing tends to be about 10 years behind everybody else when it comes to tech. Just is kind of just I mean, it's just that's what the data shows. And from my experience, it tends to kind of follow that trend. Why? I think that's probably a whole nother episode that we could talk about. But the main differences I think are that like inherently a lot of manufacturers are focused on like engineering and operations and product development and these very tangible things. And SaaS companies, like they don't have brick and mortar stuff. They're everything is digital. Everything is vaporware until it becomes something. Right? And so SaaS companies, I think, are just naturally looking for advantages when it comes to technology and like how to leverage, automation and AI and work. Right, it's just kind of it's part of what they're doing. I mean, that's what they're creating and selling to their clients. So you would think that it would be kind of natural that they would apply to their own business. Manufacturers don't, they're not really selling like a digital product. I mean, some of them have, more and more so now, right? They're kind of doing like Internet of Things, right? With manufacturing floors being connected. So when you sell a system to somebody, you're not just selling them a system nowadays, right? A lot of times you're selling them things that like they're monitoring that system and predictive maintenance on that system. And there is now this more digital kind of path that people are taking. But there's still a lot of, $100 million and below manufacturing companies out there. I mean, there's a lot of them out there that just, haven't, maybe there hasn't been the need that's been painful enough to drive them there, but it's happening now. A lot of them are feeling it. A lot of them are feeling this like, crap, everyone around me is talking about AI and I want to do AI, but I don't even have structured data, or clean data. I'm like, I don't even know where to start. And so that's
Yeah.
where I think just a lot of education that, you have to teach people about revenue operations. Some people have never even heard what revenue operations is. Right? They don't have a director of revenue or, VP of RevOps or something like that. It's very, like the hierarchy, right? It's still kind of a little old school in terms of how the companies are structured. So, but I do see the changes happening. I see people who are more and more focused on this stuff, and I think a lot of it too is you tend to see, and I'll just say it how it is, right? You tend to see a lot of older folks in manufacturing, right? And older is just a relative term, but like people who've been there for 30, 40 years, doing things the same way for 30 or 40 years, and they've never looked anywhere else, so they never heard or known about a lot of these methodologies or philosophies. So there's a lot of education before you just jump into, cool, let's get into ROI and marketing attribution and yeah, things that are
Yeah.
a little more advanced. Yeah.
Yeah. Because even though they've been doing that for a while, in a lot of cases, they've been successful doing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even though the 15-minute email might be painful, it's not painful enough if they know that it's going to do the job.
Yeah. It's not painful enough yet, for some folks, but I think it will be painful for everybody if
Yeah.
folks don't start, kind of focusing on some of these challenges. I think that's going to be a big differentiator over the next 10 years, right? The companies who decide to, invest in these types of things, and these processes and these people and these technologies, I think will come out ahead, and they'll survive. The folks who resist it, I think will, really struggle a lot, more and more so. And then there's going to be a point where I think it's just really hard to catch up.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah. We're seeing some of those gaps form
yeah,
already, thanks to
yeah.
AI for sure.
Yeah, like I don't want to like play like the fear, card here, but it's like, wake up, people, pay attention. Like there's stuff going on, and you better like at least start looking at the bus routes. If you're not getting on the bus yet, you better start knowing where they're going.
Yes, for sure. And I know what you and I love to do is often, because these are generally smart people, like you don't, it's really hard to grow a successful business if you don't have some smarts.
Yeah.
So it's just being able to talk to these guys and gals in their language that I
Mhm.
find super helpful. But let's take a step back because I know it's not all about business with you for sure, and that's a lot of what I hear about and why people like working with you. So let's give us some background. Who's Zach outside of HubSpot?
Well, let's see here. Zach, outside of HubSpot, doesn't do a lot in the winter time here in frigid upstate New York. Here in Rochester, we've had a very cold, snowy, icy winter for a change, which has been kind of nice because I like to do like cross country skiing and go hiking in the Adirondacks and do high peaks and be out there in nature a lot with my wife and my dog. I'm very outdoorsy kind of camper adventurer, but the cold, gray, dark days just kind of put me in like work mode in the winter time. So I feel like all I've been doing lately is just working. My wife can attest to that. And actually, last night I heard her and her sister joking around. They're like, "Where's Zach?" "Oh yeah, he's working." So that's kind of what I've been doing this winter, is just hibernating and focusing on work, so that when the thaw comes and the sun comes out, I can flex my time a little bit more, right? That's why I'm working hard to build the business, but I'm also doing this so I can go enjoy the things that I like to do, and that's being really being outside, whether it's in the wintertime cross country skiing, and I do some downhill skiing every once in a while, snowshoeing, hiking, right? Just being out there. I feel like I've been spending a lot of time shoveling this winter, which is not my favorite activity. But and then in the summertime, like I'm a big golf fan. Like I love to go golfing. I'm in a golf league. We do a lot of like summer like camping and hiking, and we love to travel. So usually every year my wife and I try to pick a new country to go to, or somewhere that we've never been to before. And we're thinking about getting a camper this summer, just maybe doing a little digital nomading for a week here or there with just getting on the road and seeing a few spots. I think I got the itch earlier back in October of last year. I flew to Alaska, Anchorage. My brother lives, he lived there for he lived in Alaska for about 8 years. So we'd done some fun adventures up in Alaska over the years, and him and his wife and their kid, they moved to Detroit, Michigan, which is where her family is from. And so he called me and said, "Hey, you want to drive back from Alaska down through Canada and like take a couple of weeks to just go hit up a bunch of national parks and have some fun?" And I hadn't seen my brother much in 8 years, right? I mean, it's hard to get to Alaska.
Yeah.
So I said, absolutely. So called another friend of mine that, we had mutually, and the three of us started in Anchorage and took 2 weeks and drove back all down through Canada and into Montana and through Wyoming and the Badlands. And we ended up just going all the way back to Rochester. It's about 5,000 miles, and it's like that's what life's about. It's like you work to go do these things, and so that's so I like just like being outside a lot, and then I do a lot of like in the summertime we have a garden in the backyard, and do like a lot of house projects and landscaping stuff. I have just like way too many hobbies. I think I have like a million half-started projects in the basement in the garage. I think my mom told me I'm like my grandpa a lot in that way. Uh, being, is one of the things that I got into, several years back. Music, it's just kind of like all over the place. So you'll find me out and about, talking about like just some of the most random stuff that I'm in, out there doing, and I love it. So very eclectic, I guess. True Renaissance man.
Yeah. No, it seems to be a common theme in the community, and I think that relates to, you know, just like to build and tinker and fix, and
Yeah,
like that's why if you don't like to do those things, you definitely might have a hard time in RevOps,
yeah,
because that's basically, what we do. And sounds like a lot of gardeners in the family community too. So maybe we can get
yeah.
a channel started up for that.
The profoundly community garden.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we had like a short little masterclass from Joshua Oakes on
There you go.
his episode. You mentioned golf though. What are we usually shooting on the golf course?
Well,
It's a safe
yeah,
space.
I think it depends on how much we're drinking. There's kind of like it's a bell curve, but I think I'm around like a 15 handicap, maybe somewhere around there. So not horrible, not great, but sometimes I surprise myself. It's just about there and having fun with the guys on the course. It forces us to just get out there and step away. I think that's what I like about it. It's like I can't really do anything else but play golf for the next couple hours.
Yeah.
So, once a week, maybe twice a week in the summer times. It's definitely one of my favorite things to get out there and do.
Yeah. It's one of the only places I actually like will turn my phone off like all the way and
Yeah.
just definitely
Yep.
disconnect.
Well, no one wants to be, the jerk, talking on their phone in someone's backswing, right?
Yep, that's exactly it.
I mean, I've been there, but sometimes you can't help it. But every once in a while, you sneak out onto the golf course when you might have a meeting that you have to hop onto. That's okay. But
Yeah.
we don't do that often.
Yeah, we got an exciting event coming up, and you're actually going to be in one of the panels. But just to set the stage, we've got Frownly Kickoff coming up March 6th.
Yep.
We've got 8 tracks: HubSpot admin, integration developer, web developer, RevOps, marketer, AI founder, and solopreneur.
Hmm.
Which one of those are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I mean, I'm on the integration one, so I'd have to say that that's probably the one that I have to look forward to the most. I mean, I look forward to like kind of learning a little bit for all the tracks, right? So it's like, participating and at least listening to as many as I can. I always pick up something from somebody from their unique experience. But yeah, the integration track I think is I'm excited about that one because especially like as I get more involved with more manufacturing companies. And as those manufacturings get further along their, HubSpot journey, they tend to kind of always drift into, okay, like how do we leverage our data better? How do we streamline the process more? How do we reduce these administrative tasks, right, and automate things? And it kind of gets into that. Well, we have to look at integrating things, right? I mean, HubSpot doesn't solve it all. I always try to do it in HubSpot first, and if I can't, then I look to the marketplace. And if the marketplace doesn't have it, then okay, great. We have to look into some kind of like open source API and do some custom integration work. And so I've worked on a handful of those projects, and they're all very different but similar, and they're all present challenges. It's definitely nothing. There's no cookie cutter like exact playbook for any of these things. I think the key is like you work with good partners and you ask good questions and you don't rush things and you plan, right? You fail to plan, you plan to fail kind of a deal. So I'm excited to kind of talk more about, integration use cases and what other folks are doing out there and kind of, just chatting about like, well, how do you approach these things? Like, when are you ready for integration? When do you tackle that, right? Crawl, walk, run kind of stuff. What phase do you do it in? Because it's not usually phase one.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk about some of the stuff that we've worked on.
Yeah. I'm excited. I get to be on that panel as well because we're talking
Well, that's how we
about,
met. That's how we met,
yeah.
right?
No,
It
it's a
was
perfect example of
right.
what you were describing earlier, this ecosystem. Like, you have such a full-bodied platform now in HubSpot. Like, if you're working with an individual consultant and they tell you that they know everything about every inch of the platform, it's a red flag, first of all.
Yep.
And two, it's like you're literally tying hands behind your back because there are other people that can get involved. And this was a perfect example of, you talk about focusing on marketing and sales strategy, and then all of a sudden we want to start, doing quotes, and it's been in the ERP. How do we get it over? Like, how do we manage change?
Hmm.
And that was one of the things as I came into the consulting world. I was like, oh no, we can't explain it like this, or else HubSpot doesn't have a chance in hell in mattering to these people. You can't just throw all the data at the other systems, right? So
Hmm.
how do we even
Hmm.
have a conversation around the data needing to move back and forth, and what's HubSpot's role and what's the ERP's role? And like, because we have all dealt with this, at least in our space. And this is why it's not like this in every space. Like, ERPs in the digital places, like, so if you're using NetSuite, like in SaaS, you're much more likely, in my opinion, to not be using it for CRM because you've been using CRM for years and it makes no sense to why you would do that in an ERP, right? In From our neck of the woods, it's like, oh, it can do that too. Let's just get it in there, right? And also this ERP space, it's new in terms of like allowing stuff to be integrated into the ERP, especially when that stuff is HubSpot, right? So the other thing that we're going to talk about is really how, like you mentioned, we pull back to like the scoping process is everything,
Mm.
right? And because right now there's the catch 22, since this is new, I constantly get things like, oh, do you have any experience with XYZ? Or do you know anybody that has
Hmm.
experience integrating this specific software with HubSpot? And I'm like, nope, I don't, because it's probably never been done before. If it
Yeah.
has, there's only a few people.
Yep.
And the thing is like, that person might be really good, but if they look at HubSpot a different way, you're not going to get, what you want. So that's where the scoping part and really asking the questions, like you say, is of utmost importance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I think you're right. A lot of these things is like, nope, never done this thing before, but like we know how to do like things in this universe, right? Like we have the tools in our toolkit to be able to solve these problems, right? There's no like how-to article that we can look up. There's no YouTube video that's done it before, right? There's just like a collection of like past experiences with this group of brains that we've pulled together to say, let's tackle this thing, right? It's like nobody had ever gone to the moon before, but somehow they put a bunch of smart people in a room and figured it out, right? And pretty amazing that they did it back when they did it, right? So it's like we can figure these things out. That's what we do, and that's why we love doing it. That's what gets us excited to help solve these things. So I think it's really just about finding the right types of people who have the right kind of experiences. Not necessarily it's going to be like someone that says, hey, like we do this. You know, I mean, I think that there's like a lot of smaller, mid-sized partners, right? Like Hussion Bound. There's a lot of like individual kind of like HubSpot, like freelancers and consultants that are out there, and none of us can do it all by any means, right? But like if we have good partners, right? It's like, well, if I can't do it, like I know Chris can help me, either do it or help me find someone that can do it, right? Or I can go to Profoundly and throw something out there and say, hey, who can help me with this project, right? And then it's just about just pulling them in and either making that kind of connection with the client and saying, hey, you should talk to this person to solve this thing, right? Or depending on your business model, it's like, great, I'm going to hire you to do this work for me because I need someone who can do it. And so it's been a great like kind of just team effort.
Yeah.
Been some interesting projects for sure.
Yeah. And Thank you for highlighting that because that's always, I'm trying to remind myself every day, like, we're seeing that in Profoundly already. Like, we've been in 2 days, it'll be a month that we've
Yep.
launched.
Yep.
And we just brought in a whole new batch of pros. And it's just like the transparency, the openness to talk about proposals
Hmm.
and how you would do it versus how I do it. Like, how do you chart? Like,
Yeah.
I knew going into this, like, this kind of thing probably could not exist like in other ecosystems. So we're leveraging the special soul of the HubSpot ecosystem, right?
Feels different to me. I don't know why, but it just like it's like the other day. I was driving. It was like a Friday afternoon. I was meeting up with a friend. I was going to go cross country skiing, and I called up Bill Barless. Hey, Bill, I got this client. We're trying to solve this challenge for. I'm like, I know that there's gonna be a way to do it, and I'd love to pay you money to do it. But if there's another way to do it where I don't have to pay you money, like let me know. And that's like not how you would normally just kind of like, approach a lot of things. And, Bill's like, hey man, what's up? Like, sure, let's talk about it a little bit. And I'm driving, he's looking up some stuff on his computer and we're kind of walking through it. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I found this thing. Here you go. And like, Bill, I haven't looked into it yet, but I think it's going to be, maybe work. So, it's like that was just super helpful. Just point me in the right direction, and that that shouldn't we shouldn't have to charge for that 10-minute phone call or like walking our dog or something, right? And that's been really awesome to have kind of like that community there. And then like if it did turn into something where it's like, oh, there isn't a really easy solution for this, well, guess what, Bill? I need to now hire you to go do this thing. And I think that's also like a big differentiator in like the size of your agency is like if you're a small, nimble kind of shop, right? Like we are, we do some things in house like very, very well. And then there are other things like when it comes to like I'm not a software engineer, right? I got to go find a good partner to do this. And that's kind of what you pay me for too. It's like my Rolodex of partners that I've vetted and worked with that I know that can get the job done. And then you have like some, really, really big agencies that do it all in house, right? It's like we're, one stop shop and we have it all, but I'm not there. I can't go float, a 20 person, salary right now and hope that the work comes in. And that's, I think, a tough business, right? That's a tough agency life is hard. Great. I have this really, really super smart, software engineer, but he's sitting here and he doesn't have a project teed up.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? So, this keeps me really nimble and just like, we find the work and we get the people when there's the need and we don't just have people sitting around doing nothing, waiting for their jobs to come in. It also doesn't put like a ton of pressure on us to say like, we have to hit these super high sales numbers in order to make sure that we're putting food on everyone's table, right? Because like as an owner, you feel a responsibility to make sure that you're taking care of your employees. Well, I would hope most of them do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just, so that's kind of how I've been structuring things, and it's working out. It's working out great. It's giving us kind of that controlled, you know, scalable kind of growth that we're looking for. And I'm sure it'll change over time, but it's right now. It's like just great to have a whole community behind me to make it work.
Took the words right out of my mouth, man. Now you have a place to hang out with people doing the exact same thing,
Yeah.
and it's really beautiful what we're seeing. And I thank you for getting in early and believing in the mission, and being active. We appreciate that so much. So if you're watching this, and you want to be a pro like Zach, that thing we just described sounds super
Well, no,
awesome.
stop. If you want to be a pro, yeah, not everyone wants to be like Zach, right? Let's be real here.
Fair. Head over to profound.ly and you can click on the Give HubSpot Help button right next to the Get HubSpot Help button to sign up to be a pro and come check us out. March 6th, click on the big old CTA on the homepage, Profoundly Kickoff event. It's going to be a blast. Until then, thanks so much, Zach.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to having some more, fun conversations with you.
Yes, indeed. Until Monday, everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
See you later.